Alrighty, let's kick off. It's 1 o'clock, so I'll just keep an eye and see if anyone else arrives while we're working through. But yeah, we'll sort of kick off. Waste anyone's time, because that's what we're here to learn about. So just a quick introduction. Oh, if you haven't used Zoom before, most people have. The buttons are as they are. Feel free to leave it in time. I'll send a recording out later this afternoon or tomorrow. And yeah, you'll be able to re-watch it later, or it'll be up on my website. So I'm Shelley, Director of Clear Mind Accounting and Advisory, a chartered accounting firm based in Amakoroa, in the Bay of Plenty. So yeah, we're a full service accounting firm, just helping clients grow their business and get more time, mind, and financial freedom. So I will crank into the thought of the day. So thank you for being here. It's not lost on me that if you're here now, you've probably already reclaimed some of your time. That's why you're here, to learn about it. People who aren't here that probably need to hear these messages a bit more. So thanks for being here. I appreciate you making the choice, and I will try to give you as much value as I can in this little bit of time. So just considering this quote, either the day runs you, either run the day or it runs you. And we can all attest to time getting away on us pretty easily. So, and this is kind of the theme for today. So just before we get stuck in, usual disclaimer, everything's in the webinar's general and no substitute for tailored advice specific to your particular circumstance. So, alrighty-o. So the agenda for today, so here's what we're going to cover. Just letting some people in. So we'll discuss why we're always busy, look at some mindsets that we can use to help us reclaim our time, identify where time is being wasted, discuss some practical ways to free up time, and your next steps, because there's no point attending something like this if you're not going to actually do some action from it. So, and then we'll go through some questions at the end. Oopsie, sorry, too far ahead of myself. Cool. And the questions at the end. So if you come across questions, just pop them in the chat box as we go, and we'll go through them at the end. So to kick off, take a look at why we'll always be busy. These are my top 5 reasons. So work tends to expand to the time you've got available. So often pace your output to match the timeline you have. Your team members or other people around you are doing this as well. So think about if you've got budgets or time allocated for a job. So when we've got that allocated, it can be sort of a bit arbitrary, like it's just plucked out of thin air or based on sort of historical information. It brings that focus into how much time you've got available. So if you've got 8 hours, you probably use 8 hours. And that figure could be just arbitrarily pulled out of thin air. So that's where that time available is, comes into play. So obviously there's no shortage of distractions. We might have a job that needs finishing, but it doesn't have a clear deadline. So it's kind of waiting. We procrastinate, pick up, put down, and have other seemingly urgent interruptions that distract us from it. Our perception of busyness changes. So it's all relative. So for example, say a high school student might have, say, an hour of homework per day. But trying to fit that in with their other teenage tasks, whatever they may be, scrolling on their phones, it makes them feel very busy because they've got to fit it in. And then a university student, so obviously will have more workload, but they can produce more, so they probably won't feel any busier than they were when they were at high school. And then they join the workforce, their workload increases, and so does their output ability, so they still feel just as busy. There's also a perception that busy is successful. So I guess think about how you respond to people who ask you how you are. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that they're bored or they're struggling to to fill their day in, if they're retired. Maybe they might say that, but generally most people are, oh, I'm so busy. And just everybody's busy, and it's a very overused word. And being busy is often an excuse. So when we have more time, we don't necessarily do the things we want to achieve. For example, working on our business is often put on the back burner, and read books, education, things like that, they'll often sit on the sideline because we're too busy to read them. I guess how many books do you have sitting on your bedside table or on a shelf waiting for you to read when you've got that spare time? So in other words, we choose to work in the way that we do. So we have to make better choices about how to reclaim our time. So we'll have a run through some helpful mindsets to get started. I'd like to start by quickly looking at the 7 habits of highly effective people. So that was developed by Stephen Covey. First habit is to be proactive. So make the choice to improve your life through the things you can influence. The second is to begin with the end in mind. Your values are, I guess, a framework for decision making. Use them to set your goals and then focus on achieving them. And the third is to put first things first. So set your priorities and focus on them to avoid wasting time on unimportant and sort of non-urgent tasks. The first 3 habits relate to managing and reclaiming your time, so we'll only really be looking at those today. The other ones are think, win-win, seeking first to understand, then be understood, synergizing, and sharpening the saw. So I'm not sure if any of you have done a business planning session with me or other webinars or things, but you may have seen this mindset before. I use it like all the time. So I just want to link the 7 habits we just looked at to this model. More specifically, the first habit, which is be proactive, and the second habit, which is start with the end in mind. So being proactive about staying above the line and focusing on what you can control, not being a victim and saying there's nothing you can do about the lack of time you have. I guess as confronting as it may sound, you're choosing to be as busy as you are. You're the only one who can make decisions about your own time. So more specifically, you're choosing to do the things you're doing. So the second habit also ties into this model. It's called starting with the end in mind. So thinking about how you'd like people to describe you at your funeral. It's a bit morbid, but you can start being that person now. So stay above the line on this and stay firm in your time management so you can be that person. It's making all those decisions, those little decisions that add up at the end of the day. Cool. The second mindset that I want to share is Atomic Habits. So lots of people have read it, and hopefully, if you haven't, it's an amazing resource. So that speaks directly to starting with the end in mind. So building identity-based habits will enable you to better prioritise your time and achieve better results. So by focusing on who you need to be, which is your identity, and choosing habits consistent with that identity, your desired outcomes will flow more easily. So that could be something like, I want to be a runner, and that's what your identity you want to be. So building habits around going out for a short run every day will help you get to that outcome of being a runner. Like, you don't have to run marathons to be a runner. You can just run for 5 minutes every day and you're a runner. So keeping that in mind helps the habits form more easily. So I guess from reclaiming your time perspective, we'll focus on your identity. So say you want to be more proactive and focus on what you can control, but you find yourself distracted. So you want to set aside some time to complete, say, some of your business plan actions or some of the things you've set yourself, your goals for the year. Email or text message pops up on your screen or phone. This is called the queue. You can see this message and you want to read it. So you want that dopamine hit, and that's called a craving. So you open the email and this is the response. You think to yourself, oh, it's just a short one, just a short email or a text from a client, and you know the answer, so you can quickly tap out a response. Then 10 minutes later you hit send. That's the reward. So as you feel satisfied that you responded to the client's email, before you know it, you're on to the next email or text and so on and so on. So you can see how these little 10-minute chunks can really add up and your day just disappears. So what we might need to do is remove that queue or replace it with a different one. So what if you switch off your email and phone notifications while you're working on your business, even if it's just for an hour, 2 hours? The queue could then become a to-do list that you've written on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper or something. And you've created that yesterday. So that's your queue, that's the list. The craving then becomes wanting to tick off the actions on your list. The response is obviously to spend an hour doing those things so you can tick off those actions. And the reward is you can set whatever it want. It might, for some people, it may be as simple as actually being able to tick it off and saying you've done it, or it could be go and have a coffee when you've done it, or you can have 15 minutes of mindless scrolling or something, or read a chapter of your book, whatever. So that could be the reward. It's how sort of you develop those habits by following those 4 steps, making sure that they are better than the other one, which was, you get the text and you want to read it. So we need a mindset that reflects our identity. Who do we need to be to control our time? And only you can adjust your behavior. And if you want to reclaim your time, you've got to do something different. So let's look at what you can do differently now using the best time management model ever written, which is the Achiever matrix. So some of you may have seen this before, also created by Stephen Covey. And by the way, if you haven't read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, definitely put it on your reading list. So in a nutshell, this matrix reflects that we all live in a time-pressured world, obviously, with multiple overlapping commitments. So urgency is not reserved for special commitments or major things anymore. Everything seems to be urgent. So separating the tasks into these 4 quadrants help us to better manage a flood of responsibilities in different aspects of our lives. So it also helps us do excellent work and maintain a positive frame of mind. So it kind of reflects the 3rd habit, which was put first things first. So we need to spend, so you can see that the urgent quadrant and the important quadrant is where we tend to spend a lot of time. But what we need to do is be in the important and not urgent quadrant, because that's where we're most effective and can spend time innovating and preventing and planning. So preventing, planning, and innovating will prevent more things from falling into the important and urgent quadrant. It'll prevent those crises. So as part of this, you also need to have a think about what is distracting you. So what falls into that not important line, whether that's urgent or not urgent. So what are those disruptions can you minimize? And what ones are distracting you from working in the important, not urgent quadrant? So in that important, not urgent quadrant, there's often things like, building your business and putting time into systems and processes that will make things more efficient. So I guess what strategies can we use to reclaim some of that time that's spent on some of these non-important things? So first strategy is to reclaim first strategy to reclaim time is to utilize the productivity pyramid. So let's take a little look. So the pyramid looks at time versus your return on the time invested. There's 5 stages and strategies to maximize your return. So the first stage is improve. So this is where you can look at mastering your expertise by working better. So I'll run through a little example so it makes more sense as we go through these ones. So say you've got a chiropractor. She's just going out on her own, setting up a new little business. So in this improve quadrant, she spends a lot of time doing courses, learning systems, processes, and things to master what she's doing, reading, things like that. So it takes quite a bit of time. And so that's where she is at that point. Then next is increase. So this is where you get more people to do what you're doing by delegating and outsourcing. So that could be the chiropractor hiring a contractor, outsourcing some of your other resourcing needs, maybe contracting an admin person to help, things like that. So she's starting to leverage her time a bit more. The third is invest. So that's where you invest in technology and systems to scale. So that could be a booking system for the chiropractor. It could be an accounting software that helps her efficiently process her invoices and things like that. So the next one is invent. So that's where she could, I don't know, put together a how-to guide for setting up a chiropractor business. So she's done the hard yards. She's got to the point where she knows how to do it. Everything's running smoothly. So she starts putting together a help guide for other people that are thinking of doing the same thing. And then she can sell the value, the IP that she's created. And then the top one is innovate. So that's where she's off working on better things. So she's now, her business is running successfully. She's got this IP. She's now speaking at events or just spending time sort of selling that rather than actually doing the doing to attract people to buy from her. And you can see that the amount of time involved in that top bit of the pyramid is a lot less based on compared to the return she's getting. So that's where that scale sort of comes in and leverage. So I guess to put this into context is what can you sort of think of to free up time by employing others or contracting out some of your work? What systems and software could you use to free up your time, increase your efficiency? I guess improved systemization doesn't only free up your time, it also allows you to grow your business without increasing the risk or the workload. So is there anything else you could do or be working on to derive a better return for your time? Things at scale make sense. So something you can make once and sell multiple times. So I guess as crazy as the pandemic was, it has forced a lot of businesses to think, adapt, innovate, engineer, reinvent, and come up with new solutions for the way people work. So happy to have a chat about how to use this sort of productivity pyramid to your advantage. Often a fresh set of eyes, looking at your specific situation opens up opportunities that you may not have seen before. So combining your expertise on your subject matter with ours is a great way to help distinguish the wood for the trees and come up with a better way of working. So strategy number 2, stop working with the wrong people. So this one's fairly self-explanatory. So try to avoid working with people who don't pay you on time, treat you or your team badly, don't live into your core values, or are unreliable. Your time's too precious to waste on those sorts of people. So opening the door of opportunity, which is a very polite way of saying stop working with them, to the wrong people frees up your time to spend with better clients, better customers, and your team will obviously be a lot happier because they won't have to deal with that person. I guess have a think is if there's someone in your life or in your business that comes to mind that you would like to open the door of opportunity to. Happy to help formulate a strategy for that. Next strategy is better meetings. Obviously, depending on what your business is, some of you have more meetings than others. And there's definitely value in having meetings if they're done well. So it could be a 10-minute toolbox meeting over coffee and muffins, or a prospective client meeting. As long as it's efficient and valuable to everyone, it's worthwhile. But poorly planned meetings are consistently a top 10 time waster. So putting some time into planning that makes sense. So the rules of the game for running effective meetings. So set a time limit and stick to it. So if it's a toolbox meeting, so make sure it's only 10 minutes, quick in and out. If it's a monthly team minute meeting, so maybe 45 minutes. check the time as you go through the meeting and manage it so that it's not going to drag on. Get reports prior to the meeting. So if you have, say, a weekly team member report where they had a certain structure of things they wanted they had to send through, so like what they were working on, where they were stuck, and what they need help with, things like that. If you can get that through before the meeting, that gives you talking points and avoids and gives you ability to address those challenges quickly. Set a regular rhythm for the meetings. So a daily or a weekly meeting, no more than 10 minutes. Having these scheduled means your team stays informed and you won't be repeating yourself to every team member. So it's making sure the message is going across everyone all the time. And you're also in that space, you're providing informed feedback, so you should get less interruptions during the working day. It gives your team a time that they can talk to you. Set a clear purpose and agenda. So even if it's a regular meeting, then it will just be a standard agenda, but it still should have some sort of agenda and purpose. It encourages the attendees to prepare and minimises the risk that go off on a tangent. If an item comes up that isn't on the agenda, then that gives you the license, I guess, to set aside time to deal with that another time. If you've agree the actions and not try to avoid lengthy discussions. So if you've received your reports, your team member reports prior to the meeting, or your client pre-work or something, so you've got a bit of an idea of what the meeting's about and where the client's at. If you work with me, you know that I don't generally do any meetings without some sort of pre-work. And you should be able to make the decisions quicker and get to the point quicker. So if there needs to be more detailed discussion, then you may need to delegate it to another person, whoever's most appropriate. Set a separate meeting so that you're not wasting everybody's time. So, and record your actions from the meeting, who, what, and by when. Pretty standard. You can't really follow up if you haven't written them down. And that's where the accountability piece comes in. So this is a check in on your actions. So it may be that you have a weekly meeting, you set some things that you're going to do. The next week, the first thing you do is check in on the actions you set last week. And it makes sure that things actually get done. People know that you're going to check in. So I guess have a think next time you have a meeting. How does that stack up in terms of effectiveness? Can you change it up a bit so that it is more effective and efficient and timely? Cool. So the fourth strategy to help you take control of your time is to do a 10 hats organisation review. So this is relevant for a tiny one-man band business, all right up to the biggest business, because every business has the 10 hats. I mean, if you're a sole trader, maybe slightly less, but still, there's still all the same stuff that needs to get done. So this is basically the 10 departments in your business. So above the line is the strategic thing. So that's setting the direction of your business and the ownership. And below the line is operational. So that's the day-to-day running of the business. So as you see, every business needs this, regardless of whether you're just by yourself or you've got more people. It helps to draw the accountability lines. So it allows for better planning, reporting, delegation, time management, as well as helping to assess resourcing gaps. So if you could do this for your business, you can assess where you might need some external help. And it's kind of important to create a sustainable, scalable, and ultimately saleable business. So where do I click to? Cool. 10 hacks. Sorry, I've skipped ahead some of my notes here. I guess have a think about having a look through those. What hats are you currently wearing in your business? And how many? What hats should you consider getting rid of? What can you outsource? What can you pass on to someone else. So I guess doing a 10 hats review will help analyse what hats you're wearing well, what are your natural strengths, and what's being neglected. So then we can form a plan to ensure you take some of those hats. I'd love to actually get 10 hats at some stage and write those on them. Anyway, so more specifically, I guess the benefits of doing a 10 hats organisational review is that you get clarity of roles and how they work together, improve delegation and personal development for your team members, clear accountability lines, identifying resourcing gaps and outsourcing opportunities, and providing for scaling up without blowing you apart, I guess, without destroying your mental health. So considering some examples of contracting out or outsourcing that might help you reclaim your time. So firstly, marketing, that's an obvious one. Most businesses don't have, unless you're really big, don't have the resource to justify a full-time marketing person to create and implement a marketing plan. So that's a pretty obvious one. You can get some amazing marketing people for, however much or little time you want. Finance and bookkeeping. It's another common thing to outsource. I guess you really need to be doing your GST, zero reconciliations in the evenings after work. That's just about giving you that mental space to someone that is, I guess, more proficient at that day-to-day stuff. HR, if you've got a team, it's obviously very expensive to get it wrong, and not many of us really want to be an HR expert, so that's an obvious one to get support with. And you could think about IT, admin, could minimise your risk and save you time and money. So I think a lot of Kiwis are getting better, but not very good at valuing their time, and that's where the need for outsourcing really comes into its own. If you can get some work done that takes you 2 hours, and you could be earning $200, $300 an hour versus paying for an admin person who's way better at it. They could do it in an hour and a half, and you're paying them $60, $70 an hour. It just makes sense. It's just getting over that barrier of, I could do it myself, which I think a lot of people find a bit tricky. I think we are definitely moving towards a more outsourcing models. I guess there's a few misconceptions around delegation. It's quite a skill, and it's one that needs to be mastered to be able to do it effectively. It's not just throwing a task at someone and hoping they'll do it right. It requires quite a bit of communication. So you need to assess the task, delegate it to the right person, which is key. Providing support as they learn how to complete the new task. You need to communicate the parameters. We could have changed that to made that a bit more of a less wordy word. And you could do that via meeting and an email or a written procedure of some sort. So they've got something to refer back to. A good idea to ask them to repeat back the instructions to make sure they understand it, because often people say they do and they actually don't. Set a clear deadline and get some notification when it's done, or set a review process in place initially. Articulate the objective and the expectations to make sure that they're agreed. Another one that's not on that list is to make sure the person understands why they're doing it, not just what they have to do. A lot of people work a lot better if they understand why they're doing it and what the outcome's going to be. And most importantly, set some time to review. Obviously, so that's me. You go over and expect them to not get it right the first time. So keep your expectations realistic. And if you're abdicating, which is, I guess, the opposite, you're basically just flinging it off and forgetting about it. This is the delegation where you're actually still keeping the control. And I guess don't be surprised or offended if their fresh perspective, they find a more efficient way of achieving their desired outcome. That's a happy byproduct of delegation. A fresh set of eyes will often find a more efficient way of doing something. This also helps with improved trust, respect, communication, and productivity, which ideally leads to improved profit, happiness, and your team and your customers being much better off. Yeah, cool, there we go. Cool. So abdication can often damage culture, sets the team up to fail, and reduces your communication and productivity. So it's important to do it correctly. So I guess, what's your plan now that you've freed up some time, or you've got some strategies to free up some time? So I guess a few recommendations from me. So commit to teaching others what you've learned. So consolidating your knowledge. So take something out of this. If you want a copy of any of the mindsets, just make a note in the feedback, and I'll flick it through to you as a PDF. Share them around. Share them with your team or people that you know. Just help to bed them down. Spend some time sharpening your saw. So whether that's learning, whether it's working on your business, whatever you need to do to improve things. Make a better plan. Spend time working on your business so that you can be more commercial. Think like an owner rather than a worker. That will make you more commercial. Create some better habits. So, as I said, have a look at atomic habits, and take time for yourself to ensure your own health and well-being, because that's the most important thing. So I guess at times we all feel sort of the water rising around us, but ideally a rising tide should lift all boats. So that's where you spreading your knowledge, delegating, and supporting your team will ensure that everybody's lifted together and you're not up there by yourself. So I guess stress, pressure, lack of time can damage our ability to maintain perspective on what really matters. That's in the workplace and in our personal lives. So we know we need to take time for our wellness, or we'll likely be forced to make time for our illness. I know quite a few people who have had breakdowns in their time, and it takes a long time to recover. So if you can front foot that, work out some ways to get that, ensure you're getting personal wellness, then you can avoid that burnout. Not to mention the health issues that come from living in a high stress state. So I guess instead of trying to fit your me time, your important wellness activities around your work commitments, try flipping on its head. Put those non-negotiable activities into your schedule, fit the work stuff in around them. There's a lot of evidence that if we do this, we're likely to turn up and be more productive, and your clients will get used to the times when you're available and the times when you're not. So what's your next steps from here? So assess where your time's being underutilized. This will help you become more conscious of the daily choices that you make to impact your capacity. And that may be as simple as putting all your... I've got a copy of the Achiever Matrix, a blank copy. So if you want a copy, just put it up. It'll be in the feedback. And you can put some of your daily tasks in there to identify what quadrant the things that you're doing are sitting in, and that'll help you identify how you can move some of those either out or into a different quadrant. So get clear on the habits you wish to create, the ones that will improve your productivity and focus. Planning for a sustainable improvement starts with you as the leader of your business. So if you want a bit more detail, then Atomic Habits goes into a lot more detail about how you can get those habits into your day-to-day. Identify your 3 most important actions. So on the feedback form, I'll ask you for those. So that just makes sure that you've got some value out of this webinar, and supports you to bring about some change. Focus on what you can do instead of worrying about what's out of your control. We're here if you want some help. So, there's a few things that we can do. So the organisation review is a detailed session to go through, identify where those hats fit, what roles fall under those hats, and how you can rearrange to free up some time for yourself, and potentially build a more scalable and saleable business. Accountability coaching. So that's sort of a quarterly check-in, check your numbers, set some goals, set some actions, and it gives you, if time management is a thing, it gives you, is an issue for you, which I'm guessing it is, seeing as you're here or watching this, it gives you that little bit of time out where you actually get to sit down and go, okay, this is where my pain points are. This is what I need to do. Let's set some goals, and set some actions from that. And then next time, come back together and get your butt kicked if you haven't done it. Pretty much. The Achiever Matrix workshops, I just mentioned that. So that's around the 4 quadrants and helping you identify what goes in them, and some questions around what you can do to move things out or make sure that you're staying more in that important but not urgent quadrant. And then for clients, we'll often do a complimentary review every year or a couple of years, and that's a catch up to go over your set some goals and see where you're at, and make sure you're working towards that sustainable, scalable business. And any non-clients is an initial meeting where we can set some goals and actions. Yeah, cool. So, any questions? Can see something in the chat. Oh yeah, Rachel's just purchased Atomic Habits, so yeah, get into that. It's a good read. I think I read it. I did it by audiobook, so I probably need to get an actual copy of the book and read it again. It's one of those ones you can read every year and find something new in it. Anyone else got any questions? She got it with her 5 ice points, so it's all good. Any other questions for now? Hopefully it's fairly self-explanatory. Right. Cool. We'll move on. Oh, the button's working. Cool. So just a little quote from Yoda. No, try not, do or do not. There is no try. So there's no, we don't use the word try. We do or we don't, or we are not yet. So I guess make a simple plan today. Get your 3 actions as a result of today's webinar. Write them down, and they can be personal or business related. Give each of them an owner and a completion date. The owner possibly be you, but pretty hard to create actions for somebody else. That doesn't tend to go down very well. And I guess remember, if you need support, then reach out. So thanks for making some time to hang out this afternoon. Obviously your time's really valuable, so we really appreciate it. The exit survey will come out this afternoon. So I'd really appreciate some feedback in that, and let me know if you want to do anything else after this. And yeah, thanks everybody. Have a great afternoon.